Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Radiant Achiever Show. My guest today is Yvonne Winkler. Before I bring her on the show, I want to share a little bit of who she is and her background. Yvonne is the CEO of Lotus Consulting, founder of the Freedom Seekers community, and former managing director, Alberta chapters, with one of the largest and widely recognized premier business networking organizations, E-Women Network. Her personal quest for freedom to live a full life is rooted in her personal journey from oppression to freedom. Having escaped the barbed wire fences and mind control of former communist Germany, she intimately understands how fear blocks our path to the life we want. With over 18 years of business development, consulting, and marketing experience, Yvonne now coaches women to find clarity, the clarity they want, and to harness the strength they already have to choose to live the life they choose. I know she is currently working on her first book, which we may get into a little bit, called Freedom Seeker. It's filled with stories of her journey as a freedom seeker. And this book is going to be so much more than just a memoir. I know it will be filled with amazing stories of inspiration and empowerment to help you live your best life too. Please join me in welcoming the beautiful and radiant Yvonne Winkler. Yvonne Winkler, you beautiful radiant soul, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. I'm so excited to be on the Radiant Achiever Show.
Great, glad you're here, and I'm super excited for the conversation that we're gonna have over the next 20, 30 minutes, however it unfolds. So are you ready to dive in?
Oh my goodness, am I ready? Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am absolutely ready.
Okay, perfect. So I love starting with this same question, which is to tell our viewers a bit about a calling, and you might frame it as a dream or a desire that you are pursuing, and why is this calling important to you?
I love because it's such a beautiful way to discover where it all started for me. When my family moved from Germany to Canada, when we immigrated to Canada, we were running a lodge, so it was accommodations and a restaurant, and my job was to sit with the guests and talk with them, and it was one of my favorite things to do, actually. And so I met a lot of very established business owners along the way, and I've had conversations with them, but I've heard this thread of the same message over and over, and that was that within their success they always had to give up something. They had to give up either their health or their families or their just overall happiness, or not pursuing what they wanted to do. Really, they just followed the success or the money or the fame that came with it. And having had an entrepreneurial spirit most of my life, I just saw this conflict in myself around, like, so does this mean that if I have my business, run my own business and be my own woman, then does that mean I'm giving up? Do I have to give up in pursuit of this, family, health, all of that? And that didn't sit right with me. And so I navigated that for most of my young adult life, trying out different things, trying out different ways. And I kept coming back to the same thing, and that is that we absolutely can have it all, but we need to be fully aware and in awareness of what that means. It's an effort to stay present. It's an effort to every day pursue what really fulfills us inside. And so um, that is what I set out to do,
Mm.
is to help myself and other women like me to lead sustainable businesses that don't burn them out, that give them the freedom that they want. And for most women, it's not about financial freedom at all. It's about time and location freedom, because they want to be with their families. So that's, if those are the freedoms that the women I'm working with are pursuing, and that I help them find the ways to make that sustainable and achievable.
Wow, beautiful. I love your story in that so many of us have experiences, situations that happen early in life, and that shapes us at a very heart and soul level of what we want to do, as a bigger calling or as a bigger purpose in our life. And it sounds like the family business was really that kind of foundational piece where you got a lot of this experience.
Absolutely. I think the family business was the catapult, or the instigator, or the igniter
Yeah.
for the business part of what I do. The soul path, where the calling resides, that really originated in, like you said, my former story, like my formative years. I was born and raised in former communist Germany, where freedom was freedom of choice was not a word we were familiar with, or a concept we were familiar with, because we had no freedoms and we had no choice. So having escaped with my family those barbed wire fences and the mind controls and um, um, the authorities, that the patriarchy, I very intimately understand how fear blocks our path to that life that we really truly want to see and have.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Yeah, your story, and I shared a bit in your intro that you are writing your first book,
That's
and
right.
I know it will be a powerful, that it is a powerful story, and that what is coming out in your stories and your lessons, and wisdom is going to be so helpful to so many women.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that. So you, I want to maybe dial in a little bit on,
Mhm.
and I mentioned, I introduced you as the CEO of your company, your own company, and you really work with women to help them live their best lives. But you also have 18 years, I believe, of different types of corporate experience. So
Mhm.
how, because there's a lot of women out there that are in the corporate jobs that have risen the ladder to, whatever degree, and maybe dream of, being that entrepreneur. I'd love to have you share, kind of that maybe it was a one pivotal moment, or maybe it was a slow journey of discontent. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of your
Mhm.
story and how you came to create your business and your movement and community. I'd love to, yeah, have you
Yeah.
share that journey.
Oh, and this is probably my favorite question of all,
Oh, good.
because yes, it was both. It was a very slow movement, but it was also a very active movement at the same time. So there was a pivotal moment where I said enough, and that pivotal moment was actually at my last employment, or corporate job, if you will, where I had worked tirelessly, hours and hours, as many women can probably relate, overtime, unpaid overtime hours, just to even get a seat at the table, or to be acknowledged, or to be respected in our professions. And I always known, and I'm not afraid of hard work. I've always known that, I have to roll up my sleeves and improve myself and prove what I can do. So that wasn't the problem for me. My problem was more in that the recognition and appreciation for it was lacking. And
Mm,
there was a moment in my career where I realized, and I was being mentored and coached by the CEO of the company. Like, I was
wow.
really on that track of being mentored into taking the next managerial level of title, whatever. And that's what I wanted. I thought that's what every woman wants is to have that title. And I don't know. I woke up one day because, from an outside looking in, it looked like I had everything that one could want.
Yeah.
And yet I woke up every morning not feeling it at all. Like I had a hard time peeling myself out of bed. I had a hard time looking myself in the mirror, getting dressed.
Wow.
Just an overall depression and unhappiness that was coming from a place that I didn't understand at the time. And so there was this moment where I had an incident with my company that was very telling to me on the lack of appreciation for what I did for the company. And I realized at that moment, it doesn't matter how hard I work or how much more I do or how many more courses I take and certificates I get behind my name, or it won't matter. I hit a glass ceiling, and that glass ceiling needed to be shattered. And I felt the only way to shatter it is to walk away and really go back to my roots. Like, who is Yvonne? I needed to learn to love me first before I could ask that of others of me. And that was true for me, whether it came to primary relationships or whether it was my work relationships with my peers or with my bosses. And so I left everything behind. I sold everything I owned,
Wow.
and I went on a backpacking trip through Europe by myself for 9 months. And let me tell you, if anyone ever lacks confidence, that will quickly swing you into knowing how to stand on your own 2 feet.
I have so heard that. I know another gal that lives here locally that has done the same thing, and she is on fire for women to do that. So good for you. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So there was a lot to overcome on that one, but it was hands down that pivotal moment in my life where I think for the first time really took action for me and not for all the things that the outside world wanted me to. And I don't think there was any bad intentions. I think our parents and our mentors raise us to be the best versions of ourselves, but doing things for others led me that far. And that was the moment where I needed to take it on my own and just do something for me.
I love that. And I still resonate with your story because I didn't do the backpacking, but I put myself in it was probably a 9-month bubble. And I love what you had shared. And I want to really emphasize it because it truly is a pivotal thing when you begin to take responsibility to love yourself, when you start to really love yourself fully or again, and we can do it logically in our mind, say, oh, of course I love myself, but how am I really showing up that way in my day-to-day life with the things I say about myself, how I honor my needs or don't honor my needs? And so it sounds like we have that similar journey of that, reclaiming our love and really beginning to love ourselves, and how then that created a ripple effect in many ways in our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you did the backpacking journey and you came back really reclaiming responsibility and ownership for your life. And is it that time that you started your entrepreneurial efforts or entrepreneurial journey as a coach or a mentor?
No, not entirely. I did incorporate my company at that point in time because I swore off ever going back to corporate. However, I'm also a very pragmatic person, and there is something to be said about coming back from this trip where you literally live out of your suitcase or out of your backpack, and then coming back into the air quoting real world where you have a mortgage to pay or rent to pay and a car payment because you can't get around, which is public transportation, and so on and so forth. And so the life of Western world, if you will, or caught back up with me, and I needed to first and foremost get some replenish my bank accounts to do the things I wanted to do, like to take more to reinvest in myself. So whether that was in personal or
Got it.
professional development, and to create my company. So I started Lotus Consulting, and as a consultant, I used experiences I over the last I don't know how many years, that was 7 or some years, 8 years in business development, and I consulted for a client on that, and that was really great. But again, it wasn't entirely what really lit me up, and it wasn't entirely what my path where I wanted to go. But I used that time quite effectively to really gain the skills that I needed in order to do what I wanted to do. So I had this consistent money coming in to help me reinvest in myself and build Lotus Consulting and YvonneWinkler.com. And when the opportunity arose where they were looking for me to sign an employee contract, I said, you know what, that's definitely my sign to get on with it. And
Right.
I just at that point completely went on my own, which was another leap,
Wow.
but quite and a little bit scary. But I'm so glad I've done it, because now I get to do every day what really lights me up, rather than just doing something for the paycheck for the sake of the money of it. And that's truly a luxury for many, and a
Yeah.
blessing for me. So yeah.
Right. Oh, I love that. Well, I love that you shared that pragmatic part too. And I know if we look at all the women that have that entrepreneurial desire, you'll see a different blends, right? And some people just want to forget anything and say, I'll figure it out as I go along. And I don't, I don't care if I have to, eat ramen again, whatever, but other people,
Yeah.
and I so appreciate that you have your feet on the ground as well as your heart connected to the vision, and like, it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I need to be really sensible about it and make sure that I am maintaining my lifestyle of paying the bills and having food on the table and things like that.
It's super important, because that's where burnout and frustration and that failure comes from as well. If we're
Yeah.
stressed about where money is coming from to put food on the table, there is what I used to lovingly call that desperate call, or that desperate cry. And it's very difficult to build a business when you're desperate, because uh, we make decisions in desperation. We make decisions that are not always the best for the business, or for our brand, or for our purposes. So
Right.
I think to use a little bit of pragmatism, if that's a word, is very essential for any startup entrepreneur who doesn't have the capital or the money sitting in a bank account where they can just easily access
Right.
funds.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. So I want to dive a little bit into your inner journey,
Mm.
and, and it can be, more recently or in the past, that like when you said yes to, whether it was with Lotus Consulting or when you went out on your own, and you said yes, and you said it was scary. You stepped into that next commitment to truly live the vision and the business that you had in mind for yourself. What were some of those big obstacles that you personally faced?
Oh, I would say the biggest one was imposter syndrome, hands down.
Mm,
Imposter syndrome, and I don't like the term imposter syndrome. It is the definition that everybody understands, but really what it boiled down to was not enough smart, not enough education, not enough money, not enough strength, not enough courage, not enough, like there's so many not enoughs. It
you're
was
right.
just not enough. And that was probably my biggest, and still is. Like, this is still
Okay.
something that I work with and on every single day.
Wow.
It finds ways to sneak up into my life in different ways, and just when you think you've got it figured out, something else happens that makes you question, ooh, am I good enough for this? Am I
Yeah.
wise enough? um then I would say the other big one was just the overwhelming amount of information, because I'm a natural learner. I love learning. And, you know, the internet, as beautiful as it is, it can also be damaging in that way, because as soon as you Google something, all of a sudden all the analytics send a ton of information your way. And so there was this overwhelm of information, and I really needed help navigating it, or without getting stuck in constant just not enoughness, like, oh, I need
Right.
more, I need more, I need more. And then lastly, towards the end of my my big burnout crisis that I was actually facing, came down to community. I was isolated. I was completely isolated in my doing, and I felt so alone. I felt like I'm the only one that's struggling with it. I was, again, going back to social media or the internet. I was comparing myself constantly to all of these other women that had, you know, started their businesses around the same time as I had, and look how far they have come, and look how they're pretty their walls are, and look how much information they're putting out, and look how good their courses are going. And so this comparison was so damaging for me. So those, I think those are the three,
Yeah. Those are big
the nastiest
ones.
ones.
Yeah, those are big
Yeah.
ones. Okay, so then my follow-on question is, and you can speak to all of them or pick one of them, is what are some of the things that you did, or how you shifted tools, practices, mindsets to help you, you know, eliminate or minimize that obstacle, that challenge?
Oh, if you expect a short answer, there isn't one. But
This is
I
an
can.
important conversation, right?
It
Because
is.
we
It is.
all, I mean, we all have that not enoughness, just, and it gets worse because of everything we have access to. Like you said, you hit some of the big ones with social media, comparing yourself to other people, the overload of information. The more you look at it, the heavier the weight can feel about your not enoughness. So this is, I think, a
100%.
really critical conversation.
It is so critical. And it's one, Christine, I think that and I'm assuming you as well in your practice, see it all the time. And it shows up almost daily with women in different ways and different conversations. What I'll do is I'll share what I have been doing, all the things I have been doing,
Perfect.
and then your listeners can take from it whatever resonates with them. I did start. The first thing I did, actually, when I left my corporate, or my consulting, I should call it my consulting work, is I found myself a coach. Because of all the work I had already done, I knew that there would be times when I'm not going to be able to walk myself through. Let's use a metaphor. I wouldn't be able to walk myself across that bridge.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm
Yeah.
going to need some hand holding. And so I was looking for a coach who could help me with that. And I needed to be a heart-centered coach. That was very important to me. I didn't have that language at the time, but I do now. So I'm going to share it from the place I'm standing on now. And that was important to me because I was so resistant to the patriarch and to those systems that were already in place. So that was the first thing I did. And I've been working with my coach and mentor now for 3 years. And I saw her for the first 2 of those years. I saw her every week, once a week. That's how much help and support I chose to receive from her. Then the other thing I started to do was I started a regular meditation practice. And that was introduced to me because I suffer, like I said, I suffer a lot of anxiety and depression. So they go hand in hand. And so the anxiety, one of the recommendations was to learn stillness and find a meditation practice. And so I had played around with it in various different forms, in different ways. And then one day I was introduced to Insight Timer, which is like the Calm app. You know, it's just an app that has a ton of meditation practices on there for all different types. And I found some really great teachers on there that I follow. And I have been using that for, I don't even know how many years now. And I I'm currently on a 120-day roll again, where I have not stopped, like 120 days
Awesome.
straight. It doesn't always work that way. Like there's times, you know, I don't meditate for several days or maybe even weeks, but I do notice when I don't do it. So it's definitely a big part of having overcome some of it. Now, some of the internal stuff, imposter syndrome, the not enoughness, that's a really tricky nut. And that one, again, there's several different things I'm doing and have done, but awareness is always the biggest one. And then having a system of support around me, whether that, and that doesn't always mean people, it could also be, you know, different tools like I have a list of movies and shows that really help me see possibility or intention and
Beautiful.
purpose. And that, you know, music is a big one. I have my playlist of like my mood buster playlist,
I
and then I
love
have, you
it.
know, like things like that, you know, walking in nature, but and people. And so, you know,
Yeah,
when it all fails, I always have my coach on speed dial, and I say I need to talk, and I just need to talk it out,
beautiful.
and that helps. But building community, I think, is so helpful in so many ways, because sometimes when I feel this way, that I'm just not enough, the first thing I want to do is hide. I don't want to show up, and it's shown me a few times now that when I actually, on those days especially, show up and just show up in the community, there is always someone or something that is being said or done that is
Yep.
exactly what I needed to hear that moment. So community is essential. I
I
think
love it.
community is one of the biggest pieces.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you've hit some really powerful practices that have helped you and that you continue to do. So it really speaks to having, yes, we can be the solopreneur, the heart-centeredpreneur, whatever that is, the person, the woman with the vision, and we
Mhm.
don't do it in a bubble by ourselves, right? So
No,
we,
that's right.
as much as we want to serve and support other people, we need to allow ourselves and give that to ourselves as well. And in doing so, you know, you've shared how it's supported you to deal with the obstacles, right? They're part of the process. Anytime we
Yeah.
evolve, we step up in a bigger way, stuff's good, we're gonna bump up against stuff, and it doesn't mean we should stop. So I love that you've shared coach. So as a coach myself, I've had coaches for many, many years. And I love that you also prescribe that or ascribe to that for yourself. And certainly the meditation that has I use that app as well, has been transformative to my practices. And when those little obstacles pop up, and I'd be curious to see if you've noticed this yourself over time. As you grow in awareness, you see the triggers, or you see the self-talk start to
Mhm.
happen, and we can now catch ourselves.
Yeah.
I can catch myself so much sooner, instead of letting myself go down the rabbit hole and get stuck
Yeah.
and spin out over one of those not enough things for an hour or hours or a day. I can most often really, it lasts a few minutes, and then I do one of the practices and I help shift it. So
100%. You know,
yeah,
self-awareness is the best tool we can really work on, for any situation, no matter what our goals are, because when we have that awareness, we can read our bodies, we can read our what's emerging, and then we can do something about it. Like you said, life isn't all, you know, sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. Like, we will come across life on a everyday basis. How we deal with it is really what I think, um, stands between me and freedom, is
definitely.
how I work with it. And I always thought that I could find all of the solutions outside of me, but I've been learning that everything I'm looking for is right here. right?
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. 100%. That freedom, and I love the freedom seeker is what you're about. Is the freedom is inside, right? And it starts with, it's our mindset, it's our thoughts, it's our beliefs, it's how we show up in and respond in situations. So so much resonance with you. So I'd love to have you share, what has changed and shifted about you as a person. Who is Yvonne Winkler today, for having said yes to her callings, for having courageously faced the obstacles and continuing to be in a place of awareness and face things as they come up. Who are you today compared to who you were a year ago, a couple years ago, 5 years ago, however, whatever time frame you want to use?
Well, first and foremost, I think I'm Yvonne now. Like I feel more like the person that I was born to be than the person that I thought I needed to be for the world to accept me.
Wow.
And that is that shows up in just laughing more, crying without apologizing for it, like really feeling my emotions when I feel them. That shows up in me being able to get out of bed in the morning and really look forward to the day, no matter what's on the agenda. That looks like me taking more breaks when when life gets overwhelming, rather than trying to push through things. That looks like really being in the moment of and recognizing rare moments. If I can, I'll share a really quick story that was probably
Sure.
very showing for me on that regard. Was my own wedding. I was so anxious on my wedding day and leading up to my wedding day. I could barely breathe, and I didn't, like, in the moment of anyone who experiences anxiety probably can resonate with. You don't really have the ability to look into where it's coming from or not. You're just in that and you're trying to survive it. And afterwards, now many years later, I recognized that I missed out on so much at my wedding because I was in such a headspin and anxiety. And that I didn't want to ever let happen again. Like it's moments like that we have, so like we only do once, being with our family or being with family members, like that is what being in the present to me means today. And when I can get to that place on a virtually everyday basis, I feel like I am Yvonne. Like that's when I'm really truly here and me.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, I know we've had a couple conversations, connecting, and I've always just so enjoyed your authenticity. And I don't, I'm not using that word lightly. Like I feel like you so do accept, acknowledge, love who you are, and are happy and are like genuinely happy. That it truly does exude from you every time we've spoken. So I'm so enjoying this conversation today. Yes, I love it. I love it. So I'd love to then talk about what has shifted professionally for you since saying yes. And, what do you now see as possible for you in fulfilling your purpose, your calling, your business vision?
Oh, that's a really great question. Professionally, I would say, I'm going to try to put it into words. What it feels like is I used to try to be everything that was what I thought was expected of me. And that was very exhausting. And again, I wasn't able to be in the present moment because I was always one step ahead, trying to anticipate what the world wanted of me. And so professionally, I would say that what has opened up for me is that I can be in the moment and I can really absorb whatever is in front of me and react accordingly. And maybe react is not even the right word right now, but that's what came up. So So I'm not so exhausted anymore because I'm constantly thinking already in advance as to what
Yeah.
needs to happen, or how do I need to show up, or what is this person going to need from me? And like, I would literally be exhausted before I even get to the meeting or before I even
Wow.
get to the networking event. So I can definitely be calmer and navigate anything that comes up in a completely different way. I'm also more willing and able to ask for support and for exactly what it is that I need. Whereas before, I feel like I was absorbing all the information, and anything that I was told that I needed to learn, I was right on it. Like, it's like, okay, I'll learn that, like, because feeding that not enoughness. Whereas now I'm like, I appreciate that, and I know I've got that, or I don't really need to learn that. That's not where I shine anyway.
Wow.
So I'm not going to waste any of my time, trying to figure this out. I'm going to delegate that part, and I'll focus
Wow.
on this here. So those are the things that came up immediately when you asked me that
That's
question. Like,
awesome.
those are the bigger ones that have shifted
That's
for me.
big. Those are big. And what I feel from what you just described is that you have a lot of peace. You have a
Mhm.
lot of peace, and that you're just really grounded in who you are. And again, I think when that transition happens, when we stop looking out there for the answers, for other people's opinions and approval, we bring it in. It's like we put down big roots, and we
Mhm.
are this amazing tree of some sort, right? And when we stand there, we put down the roots, and we let ourselves grow and blossom, and then opportunities come to us, the synchronicities happen, and
Yeah.
we can deal with whatever the weather changes, the sun out, the sun's not out, right? But we're really grounded and anchored, and that's what comes up when I hear you speak.
Oh, and I love that. And thank you for summarizing it so beautifully, because I think that's exactly it. Is the concept of abundance and attraction is right in that. Like, now, I can really see the possibilities and the opportunities in front of me, and the collaborations, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not a comparison anymore of not enough or better than. It's now about what can we create together,
Yeah,
and
I love that.
there is that confidence in that, and also that just knowing that I'm enough, and that I'm okay just the way I am, and trust that uh, the universe will have my back, using Gabby
Right.
Bernstein's.
Right, exactly.
uh,
The universe does have your back. So, what I'd love for you to share, what is one inner power, and in radiant achievement, I'm all about, we have these inner powers, and I've defined 7, but there's an unlimited number. If you were to kind of step back and say, what's one of my inner powers that I've really used, that's been a cornerstone for me, what would that be?
oh, hands down, the one that is my superpower is resilience. I
Mm,
have burned to the ground and risen from those ashes like the phoenix so many times. Um, I know how to pick up and dust off really, really well. Um, and it doesn't take me all that long anymore either, to do that. Sometimes my coach has to stop me, because she's like, okay, we're not at the solution yet. Like, we
yeah,
still need to, like,
just,
we
yeah,
still need to
let this
process what
process.
just
Yeah.
happened. Yeah. Um,
I love it.
so that's
Yeah.
that's you said there's 7?
Resilience. Well, I teach 7 as part of radiant achievement. Like, oh,
Yeah.
and I know one thing you said is, that self-love. So that relates to inner self, authentic self-worth. And,
Mhm.
and I believe that's a cornerstone thing, that when we engage that, really embody authentic self-worth, then that opens us up to really being able to say yes to our calling and go on to do, these
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
But resilience, I absolutely, that's powerful. There's so many. Yeah,
There are so
there's
many,
no one
and
right answer here. It's whatever
no,
you can.
no,
Yeah.
no. Um, I think one of the things that I never really understood to be a superpower of mine was empathy. And I always
Mm.
looked at it more as a burden, if you will. But I can see today empathy has gotten me this far and beyond. I have an ability um, to feel what people, not everyone, but especially when I'm with someone in presence, like I'm really with them.
Mm.
I can sense and feel the emotions that they're experiencing, maybe even before they can put words to it. And that is something that I had to learn to navigate to protect myself so I'm not taking
Wow.
on other people's energy and whatnot. But it also has been really helpful in many, many ways in the work that I do, because it allows me to navigate with the rough waters with them, but hold them, let them figure it out, but hold them along the way, because I can feel what it is that they need more
Yeah,
than anything right now. Yeah.
that's fantastic. And do you feel you do a good job of having that empathy for yourself as well?
Oh God, no. Not as easily as I have it for
Okay,
others,
okay.
but it's definitely something that is growing. Okay,
Good.
it's definitely something that I'm working on getting grace. I think is
Good.
what I
Oh,
need
that's
to
beautiful.
work on with me. Right? Is it's just
Right.
um, I can see it and I understand where it's coming from, and then. Like I said earlier, I just want to move to the solution. It's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
done with it. But grace, I'm working on
Uh,
my own grace. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and I love that you're speaking to is like we are continuing ourselves to be we are works in progress of
Hmm.
our own evolution, and we're walking with our clients and our the people that are part of our community and supporting them, and we're right there with them. Like, we might be a step ahead on certain things, but we too are continuing to peel back the layers and remove the veils that we may be walking around with still, and that's
Yeah.
okay, and that's a beautiful
Totally.
thing, right?
Well, someone, and I don't know who it was, said that we teach what we need to learn the
Yeah.
most.
Yep.
And I truly feel that, like everything that I work with women today are exactly the things that I either had to work through and discover for myself, or that is still something that I'm working towards. So
Yep.
I couldn't agree more with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Right. And how cool is that? We get to actually use our experiences for the higher good of something, of
Right.
helping others. It's a fun thing for sure. So this is the Radiant Achiever Show, and I always love to ask this question: what does being a radiant achiever mean to you?
I'm going to take it right back to something that you said at the very beginning of this interview. I believe that when I am using your terminology, radiate, when I am in my radiance, when I am um, the best version of Yvonne that I can be for me, I will show up in the world in my best way. And that will have the ripple effects towards my close inner circle. And then they, in turn, will have a better relationship with their inner circle. And that is how
Mm.
I believe we are going to change um, the way we communicate with one another, the way we are human together, and the way we do business together. I do feel very strongly that uh, are women do business differently than it has been done for centuries, and it is time the world and the earth needs a different way and a new paradigm of doing things. And I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of uh, collaborating with women like yourselves on really
Yeah.
bringing that forth and encouraging and helping other women along the way to really shine for themselves. And by doing so, just like you said, that's why you have this show, is to
Right.
share stories to encourage other women to see themselves in this as well. And by doing so, I think we will individually have that ripple effect. And just imagine, how that will
Absolutely.
expand into the world. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what radiance means to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. I hope everybody's taking notes on this, because so many beautiful nuggets that you've shared, and truly that ripple effect is part of my intention in every guest I have on. Like, there's a ripple of inspiration and knowledge and action that happens. So my last question is, for those women that are sitting on the fence, or they've maybe dipped their toe into saying yes to their calling, but they're struggling to really create forward momentum, what wisdom, advice, or motivation could you give them now to help them to really move forward, to say yes to their calling in a bigger way?
Find a coach.
Mm,
Absolutely. You're going to need someone by your side that has your back while you're, spreading your wings and figuring things out. And finding a coach that is that person for you is huge. And then the second thing would be find a community that does the same thing. You'll need both. You can't just, I mean, you can, I shouldn't say you can't. You can just go with one or the other, but you're truly going to get there faster if you have both.
right. Beautiful. I so agree with your answer. And not because we're both coaches, but we've both experienced the power of that.
That's
and
right.
so ladies who are listening to this, let this be your little push to say yes and invest in yourself. And I know for myself, like, little funny story. When I first hired a coach, I was married at the time. I was actually working full time, and it was so hard for me to pay for a coach. And it was fine. I was fine taking like a group class, but I felt like I had to justify things over and over in this way and that way. And thank goodness, like, I've progressed to really own that I'm worth it. And so I'm wondering if you had any similar experiences the first time that you decided to hire a coach, and what was that self-talk going on that you had to maybe work through or get over or resolve?
It was tough. I totally hear you on that. Because I had invested my savings that I had invested those in a mega program which promised big results right away, and so I didn't have the funds, or I didn't have I just didn't have the funds or the income at that point in time to justify hiring a coach. And I also knew that if I don't, I will never get there. So it was a hard dialogue. I between credit cards and asking my husband if I like, because my contribution to the household was nearly half. I asked him if we could, if he could we could make some arrangements that I could have a little bit of an ability to invest in a coach. And I'm very fortunate that way. He's a wholehearted, he's an entrepreneur himself. He knows how valuable coaching is, and he agreed, and he forgave me for investing all of my money into this program, which was a bit of a bummer. But that's why I say, like, a coach, if I had my coach first, that program wouldn't have happened. And that's the power of knowing who to trust and what support we need. So someone who works with you and is in your corner, and not every coach is right for you either. You
Absolutely
really do need to take some time and interview a few of them. And I would say just about every coach out there nowadays has at least a one free session of for discovery, which is exactly what that is about. Because us women, we're feelers. We know who's right for us and who isn't. And so I say to anyone, go and explore as many coaches as you can and find the one that really resonates with you, and then hire them. And don't second guess that investment, because it's going to get you somewhere.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great way to end our conversation today, Yvonne. We're I hate to say this, but like we're at the end, and I, before we hang up, I want for women, and I know you've got your information there, but to know how to reach you if they want to learn more about you and what you do. Is YvonneWinkler.com the best way? Great. So it's
Absolutely.
there. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And what a joy today. I knew we would have a great time, and my heart is just so full of happiness right now from this conversation. I'm glad we made it work.
Thank you. And so is mine. And you know, Christine, you are a wonderful host and facilitator of the Radiant Achievement Show, because I've been on a few interviews, and it's hard to come onto an interview, especially I'm a people person, so to be online, and you know, there's some nerves, and you've done such a wonderful job in just helping me feel comfortable, and you know, preparing me on what we wanted to speak on. And so thank you so much for all that you do, Christine. And thank you for letting me share my story on your show. I really appreciate that.
You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome. And for everybody that is either watching this or listening to the replay, thank you for being here. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen in to the story, Yvonne's story of saying yes, and how the obstacles she faced, the courage she found to work through some of those common obstacles that so many of us women face. And it's all stuff we can solve when we go inside and tap in. So thank you for everyone to be here. And again, Yvonne, it was such a pleasure to have you. And I look forward to our next time to connect.
Me too. Thank you so much, Christine.
You're welcome. Okay. Goodbye for now, everybody. Bye, Yvonne.
Bye.